My parents left me to die in a hospital, then demanded I mortgage my future to save the brother they chose over me. It's been 3 weeks since the train derailment. I still wake up gasping, the sound of screeching metal and shattering glass trapped in my skull. I was commuting home, just another Tuesday evening, wedged between a student with oversized headphones and a man smelling of old coffee. The next thing I knew, the world tilted violently, a cacophony of screams and grinding steel, then blackness. I was told later our car had jumped the tracks on a sharp curve. I was one of the lucky ones. They said I had a severe concussion, a collapsed lung, 3 fractured vertebrae, and a deep laceration on my thigh that required 2 surgeries to close. Lucky. For the first 5 days in the ICU, I floated in a haze of pain medication and sheer terror. My body was a map of agony. All I wanted, with a desperation that dwarfed the physical pain, was to see my mother and father. I am their daughter. Surely, the news would have sent them rushing to my bedside. I picture my mother's hand, cool on my forehead, my father's awkward, worried pat on my arm. I needed that anchor, that proof that I mattered in the world. The hospital assured me they had been contacted. I was listed as their emergency contact. They knew by day 3, when the fog began to clear and the loneliness of the sterile white room pressed in, I started calling. No answer. I texted, "Mom, Dad, I'm scared. I'm in City General. Please come." The messages sat there, unread, taunting me with their blue double ticks. The silence was a physical weight on my chest, worse than the tube that had been there. A kind nurse, seeing my distress, managed to get through on the hospital line on my 4th day. She came back, her smile strained. They said they're aware, sweetheart. They send their best. Their best? What did that even mean? Not their presence, not their voices, just their best. I cried then, hot, helpless tears that soaked the starch-stiff pillowcase. My roommate, an elderly woman with a broken hip, had her children rotating visits like clockwork. Their laughter and murmured conversations were a fresh torture. On the 6th day, a colleague from work, Rachel, came to see me. She brought magazines and grapes, her face pale with concern. As she was leaving, she hesitated at the door. I saw the pictures online. Your brother's gala looked incredible. He must be over the moon. She must have seen the utter confusion on my face, because hers shifted to horror. Oh, God! You didn't know? I knew nothing. Rachel, flustered, explained. My older brother, Daniel, was being honored at a prestigious national charity gala for his philanthropic work with underprivileged youth. It was a black-tie event covered by local media, a crowning achievement. It had taken place 2 days after my accident. The pieces clicked into place with a sound like a tomb ceiling. They knew I was here, broken and alone. They chose to put on their finest clothes, to smile for cameras, to toast their son's brilliance, while their daughter lay in a surgical ward. The golden child was being polished, while I, the tarnished silver, was left in a drawer. The rage that followed was cold and clarifying. It burned away the last vestiges of hope. I remembered a lifetime of standing in his shadow. Daniel, the charismatic scholar, the compassionate volunteer, the success story. Me, the quiet one, the steady one, the one whose participation trophy, achievements, graduating with honors, landing a good job at a design firm, were met with a distracted, "That's nice, dear," before the conversation swung back to Daniel's latest venture. I wasn't jealous. I was erased. I discharged myself a week later, against medical advice, my body screaming in protest with every movement. I couldn't bear another minute in that room where their absence was a ghost. I went back to my small apartment, to the silence and the stiff, unfamiliar ache of my own body. I ignored the accumulating notifications from their numbers. I was done begging. The reckoning came 3 weeks after the gala. My doorbell rang, and there they stood. My mother held a cheap-potted orchid. My father's smile was a tight grimace. They looked diminished, haunted. "Cassandra," my mother began, her voice trembling with a false brightness. "We're so glad you're home. We've been so worried." I didn't invite them in. I leaned on my cane, blocking the doorway. Get to the point. The facade crumbled. My mother's tears, when they came, were not for me. They were tears of panic. Through choked sobs, she spilled it. Daniel had been arrested. Fraud. Embezzlement from the very charity he was lauded at the gala for supporting. He'd been siphoning funds for months, fabricating invoices for non-existent programs. A whistleblower from his own team had provided irrefutable evidence. My father, his voice gravelly with a stress I'd never heard, took over. They set bail. It's high. We've liquidated what we could. We've taken a second mortgage. It's not enough. We need your help. They needed my help. The words hung in the air, monstrous in their hypocrisy. They looked at me, their eyes not seeing me. Cassandra, their injured daughter, but a line of credit, a resource. "You want my money," I stated flatly. "It's for your brother," my father exploded, the anger he'd been suppressing finally surfacing. "Family doesn't abandon family. He needs a good lawyer. He needs to get out of that place. He needs to fight this." And what did I need? My voice was dangerously quiet. When I was lying in that hospital, not knowing if I'd walk again, what did I need then? My mother waved a hand, as if swatting away a gnat. "That was different. You were getting care. This is his life. Cassandra, they're talking about prison. You have savings. You have that inheritance from your grandmother. You could take a loan against your 401k. We'll pay you back, I swear." The audacity was breathtaking. They had my financial situation mapped out as a rescue plan for their fallen prince. The inheritance from my grandmother, the one person who'd ever made me feel truly seen, was to be ransomed for a brother who'd barely acknowledged my existence. "No," I said. The word was simple, final. It echoed in the hallway. "No," my father repeated, as if he'd misheard. "I will not give you a single cent. I will not take out a loan. I will not bail out Daniel." My mother's face contorted from desperation to sheer venom. "You spiteful girl. After everything we've done for you, this is your chance to finally do something for this family, to be a part of it. He's your brother. Where was my family when I was alone and terrified?" I shot back, my own composure fracturing. "You had a choice. You chose him. You always choose him. Now you live with that choice. You deal with it." The argument raged, a torrent of accusations. I was heartless, petty, jealous. I was letting old wounds destroy the family. I was no daughter of theirs. Each word was a confirmation of everything I had always suspected. I was not a member of this family. I was an applicant, and my application to be seen, to be loved unconditionally, had been permanently denied. They left, finally, my father vowing I would regret this, my mother weeping that they had lost 2 children that day. The silence they left behind was different this time. It wasn't the silence of abandonment. It was the silence after a storm has passed, devastating but clean. I thought that would be the end of it. I was naive. The harassment began subtly. Guilt-tripping texts, voicemails from my father, his tone shifting between pleading and furious. Then they showed up at my workplace. I'm a senior designer at a respected agency. My father marched into the lobby, demanding to see me, causing a scene about a family emergency until security escorted him out. My professional sanctuary was violated. My boss, an understanding woman named Anya, pulled me aside. Personal issues need to stay personal, Cass. Don't let them follow you here. It was a warning shot across my bow. I changed my number. I gave a photo of my parents to the front desk of my apartment building with strict instructions. It bought me a week of peace. Then the email arrived. It was from a generic free account, but the opening line told me everything. Cass, it's Daniel. I'm having a friend send this. Please read it. My finger hovered over the delete key, but a morbid curiosity one. He wrote of his desperation, the shock of his arrest. He admitted to poor judgment, to being pressured by the financial expectations of the role. He painted himself as a pawn, a scapegoat for a corrupt board member who had since vanished. The language was slick, polished, the same charm that had always worked on everyone. Then, near the end, he wrote, I know Mom and Dad have never been fair to you. I see it now, trapped in here. I was too caught up in being their star to ever say anything. But we're siblings. We're the only ones who understand this messed up dynamic. Help me, and we can fix this family together. We can finally make them see. It was a masterstroke. He acknowledged the truth I had lived with, weaponizing it to forge a bond of shared victimhood. For a dizzying moment, it almost worked. The lonely child in me, the one who had longed for an ally in that house, stirred. What if this crisis could shatter the old dynamic? What if we could emerge, brother and sister, united against our parents' favoritism? The fantasy lasted until I reread the line. Help me, and we can fix this family together. The transaction was still there, my help for his alliance. There was no apology for his lifelong complicity, for enjoying the spotlight while I stood in the wings. There was only the same entitlement, now wrapped in a new manipulative package. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something I should have done long ago. I hired a lawyer, not for him, but for me. A stern, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn, who specialized in family law and harassment cases. She helped me draft a cease and desist letter outlining the unwanted contact at my home and workplace, and stating clearly that any further communication must go through her. Sending it was one of the most empowering moments of my life. It was a declaration of a border. I was my own country now. The backlash was swift and nuclear. My parents, upon receiving the letter, didn't call Evelyn. They called everyone else. My phone, despite the new number, started buzzing with messages from cousins, aunts, uncles I hadn't heard from in years. How could you do this to your parents? They're devastated. Your brother is facing prison. Where is your compassion? Family is everything. You'll understand when you're older. I was being tried in the court of family opinion, and they were the prosecutors, judge, and jury. I felt that old, familiar shame begin to creep in. Was I the villain? Was I being too harsh? Then a message came from my cousin on my father's side, Michael. It was different. Hey, Cass. Heard some wild stuff from your dad. Sounds like a nightmare. Just wanted to check in on you. How are you recovering? It was the first question about me in this entire saga. We talked, and then he shared stories. How Daniel had borrowed and totaled his vintage motorcycle years ago, and my parents had insisted it was an accident, pressuring Michael not to file an insurance claim. How my father had asked Michael's mother for a substantial loan to help Daniel start a business that never materialized, and the debt was never mentioned again. Another relative, my great-aunt Florence, called. Her voice was thin, but sharp as a tack. Your father is telling tales, child. Don't you listen. I remember when your brother was a boy, he stole a valuable medal from my late husband's collection and sold it. Your parents told me I'd misplaced it in my old age. They've been making excuses for him since he could walk, and they've always treated you like furniture. I'm sorry I never spoke up. You stay strong. The dam broke. Messages trickled, then flowed from other corners of the family tree. Stories of my brother's entitled behavior, always smoothed over by my parents. Stories of my parents' willingness to exploit and then ostracize anyone who challenged the narrative of Daniel's perfection. I was not the outlier. I was just the latest, and because I was their child, the most deeply injured victim of their collective delusion. This network of secret dissenters became my lifeline. They offered not just validation, but practical support. One uncle, a retired accountant, helped me untangle my finances from any potential joint liabilities my parents might try to fabricate. A cousin who was a therapist offered me pro bono sessions to work through the trauma, both from the accident and from a lifetime of emotional neglect. For the first time, I had a family. It just wasn't the one I was born into. Meanwhile, Daniel's case proceeded. Without my funds, my parents had to resort to an overworked public defender initially. The evidence, as reported in the news, was damning. He eventually, faced with a mountain of digital footprints and witness testimony, took a plea deal. He would serve 18 months in a minimum security facility, followed by 3 years of probation and massive restitution payments. The charity's board member he blamed was investigated, but was found to have been duped by Daniel's forged documents. The mastermind, it turned out, was my brother alone. His genius, his charm, had all been funneled into a con. The day his sentence was handed down, my parents attempted one last grand assault. They showed up at my apartment building, bypassing the front desk by tailgating another resident. They pounded on my door, their faces ravaged by grief and fury. "He's going to prison!" My mother shrieked through the wood. "Are you happy now? You did this. Your selfishness put him there." My father's voice was a low, dangerous growl. "We will never forgive you. You are dead to us. But you will pay. We will make sure everyone knows what you are." I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I stood in the center of my living room, my heart hammering, but my hands steady. I picked up my phone and called the police. I reported a trespass and a disturbance. When the officers arrived, I spoke to them through the intercom, my voice clear. "These people are not welcome here. They are harassing me. I have a restraining order in process." I heard the commotion, the officers' firm voices, my parents' outraged protests fading as they were led away. That was the last time I saw them. The restraining order was granted, a thin piece of paper that felt like a suit of armor. In the months that followed, I focused on healing, truly healing. My body slowly knit itself back together. The scars, physical and emotional, began to fade from angry red to silver. I poured myself into my work, and my design for a major rebranding campaign won a regional award. This time, when I celebrated, it was with Rachel from work, with Michael and his partner, with Great Aunt Florence. The joy was real, untainted by comparison. I learned, through the family grapevine, that my parents had sold their house to cover their legal debts and the restitution they'd foolishly pledged to pay on Daniel's behalf. They moved to a small rental in a less expensive town, their golden life tarnished beyond repair. Daniel served his time. I don't know what became of him after his release, and I made a conscious choice not to find out. Letting go wasn't a single event, but a daily practice. Some mornings, I'd wake with a ghost of that old ache, the childish wish for a mother's comfort. But then I'd make coffee in my quiet, sunlit kitchen, look at the life I had built, a life of my own design, filled with chosen family and hard-won peace, and the ache would be replaced by a profound sense of integrity. I had finally stopped auditioning for a role in a play that had closed a long, long time ago. I had written my own story instead, and the protagonist, battered but unbroken, was finally, unequivocally free.